Okay, so ever get that feeling like the world's changing so fast it's hard to keep up?
Definitely.
Like you need a cheat sheet.
Huh.
Today's deep dive is all about a system of thought that claims to be timeless, relevant to any era.
Oh, wow.
Islam.
Okay.
Specifically, the Ismaili perspective within this faith.
Interesting.
Our source is an essay titled Islam as an Eternal Religion, the timeless perspective of Islamic teachings and Ismaili thought.
Oh.
So, are you ready to unpack how it makes the case for Islam's ongoing relevance with some unique Ismaili insights sprinkled in?
Absolutely. I'm ready to see how this essay connects the dots between ancient wisdom and modern life.
Okay, so the essay jumps right into this core argument.
Okay.
Islam isn't just history.
Okay.
It's designed to be a universal system.
Mm-hmm.
It's not confined to a specific time or place, but meant for all humankind.
And to drive that point home, the essay highlights a powerful voice from the Quran, 21.107. And we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to the worlds. That emphasis on worlds, plural right from the start, really sets the stage for this idea of universal application.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It's like the Quran is saying this message isn't just for one group of people or one point in time, but for all of humanity across the ages.
Exactly. And if we look at how the Ismaili Imams have interpreted this idea, it gets even more interesting.
Oh, okay.
Aga Khan IV, for example, has spoken about how the ethics of Islam are not bound by geography or culture. Instead, they encourage dialogue, respect, and understanding between people of all backgrounds.
So it's about finding common ground and shared values, even in a world that often feels so divided.
Precisely. The essay argues that this universality is woven into the very fabric of Islam.
Okay.
And that the Ismaili Imams have consistently championed that message throughout history.
Okay, that makes sense. But if Islam is supposed to be timeless, how has it managed to stay relevant for over 1,400 years? I mean, think about how much the world has changed from horse-drawn carriages to self-driving cars.
Right.
How can a belief system from the 7th century possibly keep up?
You're absolutely right to point that out. The world is a vastly different place than it was 14 centuries ago.
Right.
But that's where the remarkable continuity of the Quran comes in.
Okay.
Think about it. The Quran, the very foundation of Islamic teachings, has remained unchanged since its revelation.
That's actually pretty mind-blowing when you consider how quickly information and ideas evolve these days.
Yeah.
How has that continuity impacted the way Islam is practiced?
The essay argues that the Quran's unchanging nature is a key reason for its enduring relevance. It's a source of guidance and wisdom that each generation can access in its original form, ensuring that the core message remains consistent across time and cultures. Of course, interpretations and applications of the Quran have evolved, but the text itself has remained a constant.
So while interpretations may shift with the times, the core principles remain grounded in this unchanging source.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. And the essay mentions that the Ismaili Imams have played a significant role in preserving and expanding Islamic knowledge.
Yes.
How so?
Well, think about the historical context. Imagine trying to safeguard knowledge in a time long before printing presses or the internet.
Right.
The Ismaili Imams took on the immense responsibility of ensuring the transmission and interpretation of Islamic teachings, particularly during periods of political upheaval and intellectual decline.
Right.
They weren't just spiritual leaders. They were patrons of knowledge, establishing institutions that fostered learning and scholarship.
What kind of institutions are we talking about?
The essay highlights institutions like Al-Azhar University in Cairo, founded in the 10th century, which quickly became a leading center of Islamic learning. And then there's Dar al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, which flourished under the Abbasid Caliphate.
Those sound impressive, but how do they connect to the idea of Islam's timelessness? What made them special?
What's fascinating is that these institutions weren't just focused on theology. They were hubs of intellectual inquiry, where scholars from various backgrounds came together to study everything from mathematics and astronomy to philosophy and medicine. The pursuit of knowledge in all its forms was seen as a central aspect of Islamic tradition.
It sounds like they were saying, hey, faith and intellect aren't mutually exclusive.
Yes.
They complement and enrich each other.
Exactly. And that spirit of intellectual exploration fostered by the Ismaili Imams, helped to ensure that Islam wasn't seen as a static or rigid belief system,
Right.
but as a dynamic and evolving tradition capable of engaging with the intellectual currents of the time.
So they were essentially laying the groundwork for Islam's continued relevance
Yes.
by encouraging intellectual growth and open dialogue. That's pretty incredible. And it sounds like this emphasis on knowledge is still a big part of the Ismaili community today, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The Aga Khan Development Network, for instance, is actively involved in various educational initiatives around the world,
Okay.
from establishing schools and universities to supporting research and scholarship.
Right.
This ongoing commitment to education reflects that deep-rooted belief in the pursuit of knowledge as a means of individual and societal progress. It's a legacy that stretches back centuries.
It's amazing to see how these threads connect across time.
Yes.
So we've talked about the universal nature of Islam and the role of knowledge in keeping it relevant. But the essay also argues that Islam's core values are what make it truly timeless.
Okay.
Values like justice,
Yeah.
compassion, and unity.
Uh-huh.
Things that resonate with people regardless of their background or beliefs.
Yes, and this is where things start to get really interesting.
Okay.
If these values are truly timeless, they should be just as applicable in our modern, complex world as they were centuries ago, right? So let's dive into how the essay connects these core values to the idea of Islam's eternal relevance.
Okay, let's start with justice.
Ah.
It seems like a pretty fundamental concept
Yeah.
that most people would agree on.
Right.
How does Islam approach this idea, and what makes its perspective unique?
The essay goes straight to the heart of the matter by highlighting a verse from the Quran,
Okay.
4.58.
Okay.
That emphasizes the importance of fairness and accountability. It instructs Muslims to render trusts to whom they are due and to judge with equity.
So it's about upholding fairness
Yes.
and ensuring that everyone is treated justly,
Right.
regardless of their social standing or background?
Exactly.
That sounds pretty straightforward. But how is this idea of justice applied in practice?
Well, the essay argues that the Quranic emphasis on justice isn't just about personal conduct.
Okay.
It's also a blueprint for building a just society. And this is where the Ismaili perspective really shines through.
Okay.
Aga Khan IV has been a vocal advocate for social justice and pluralism,
Okay.
consistently emphasizing the importance of protecting everyone's dignity and rights,
Right.
particularly those of marginalized communities.
So it's about moving beyond just talking about justice
Yes.
and actually working to create a world where everyone has equal opportunities and access to a good life.
Exactly. The essay emphasizes that this active pursuit of justice is a defining characteristic of Islam,
Okay.
and that the Ismaili Imams have consistently embodied this principle through their actions and initiatives.
That's really inspiring. So we've talked about justice.
Right.
Now let's move on to another core value that the essay highlights: compassion.
Okay.
How does Islam view this idea, and what makes its approach unique?
Islam emphasizes compassion in a very tangible way through practices like zakat, which is obligatory charity, and sadaqah, which is voluntary giving. These acts of generosity are not just about personal piety. They're about addressing economic inequality
Right.
and ensuring that everyone has access to basic necessities.
So it's like a built-in system
Yes.
for social safety and support,
Yeah,
driven by the principle of compassion.
exactly.
And I've heard that the Ismaili community takes this idea a step further with the concept of seva.
Yes.
What can you tell me about that?
Seva, which translates to selfless service, is a core tenet of the Ismaili tradition.
Okay.
It's about going beyond just giving money and actively dedicating your time and energy to uplifting your community and serving those in need. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness
Right.
and understanding that our well-being is tied to the well-being of others.
That's a beautiful concept.
Yeah.
And it really highlights how Islam encourages not just individual acts of kindness,
Right.
but also a collective responsibility to care for one another.
Precisely. The essay argues that this emphasis on compassion is what gives Islam its enduring appeal. It speaks to our shared human desire for connection and empathy. And the Ismaili tradition, with its emphasis on seva, offers a powerful example of how to put those values into practice.
So far, we've talked about justice and compassion.
Yes.
Now let's explore another core value highlighted in the essay: unity amidst diversity.
Right.
How does Islam approach this concept, especially given its global reach and the vast array of cultures and interpretations within the faith?
This is where the essay connects the idea of unity to the concept of the Ummah,
Okay.
the global Muslim community.
Mm.
Think about the Hajj pilgrimage, where millions of Muslims from all walks of life gather in Mecca,
Right.
united by their shared faith.
That's an incredible image.
Yeah.
So many different cultures and backgrounds coming together, united by a common purpose.
Exactly. But the Ismaili Imams take this idea of unity a step further.
Okay.
They promote interfaith dialogue, emphasizing that the message of brotherhood and understanding extends not just within Islam, but across all faiths and belief systems.
So it's about recognizing the inherent dignity of every human being,
Yes.
regardless of their religious affiliation, and working to build bridges of understanding and cooperation. That feels incredibly relevant in our world today, where so many conflicts seem to stem from religious or cultural divides.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The essay argues that this commitment to unity amidst diversity is a hallmark of Islam,
Okay.
and that the Ismaili Imams, through their emphasis on interfaith dialogue and pluralism, offer a powerful model for how to navigate the complexities of our increasingly interconnected world.
Wow, this deep dive is already packed with insightful connections.
Yes, it is.
We've talked about universal principles,
Right.
the role of knowledge, and these core values of justice, compassion, and unity. But I have a question that's been nagging at me. If Islam is supposed to be this timeless, adaptable system,
Right.
how does it actually address the very specific challenges of the modern world? We're talking about things like climate change, artificial intelligence, bioethics,
Yeah.
issues that didn't even exist a few centuries ago.
Right.
How can a 1,400-year-old faith possibly keep up with the pace of change?
That's a fantastic question. And it brings us to a crucial concept within Islam that helps explain its adaptability.
Ijtihad.
Ijtihad.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with that term.
Ijtihad means independent reasoning.
Okay.
It's like a built-in mechanism within Islam
Okay.
that allows for interpretation and adaptation to new challenges.
Uh-huh.
While staying true to the core principles of the faith. It's about using reason and intellect to find solutions for contemporary issues that may not have been explicitly addressed in the Quran or Hadith.
So it's not about rigidly clinging to outdated interpretations.
Right.
But about applying the spirit of the teachings to new and complex situations.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. Can you give me a specific example of how ijtihad works in practice? Like, how would it be used to address something like, say, bioethics?
Let's take the example of genetic engineering.
It's a relatively new field with enormous potential.
Right.
But it also raises a lot of ethical questions about manipulating the very building blocks of life.
Yeah, that's a great example. I can see how people might have different opinions about how far we should go with genetic engineering,
Right.
even within the same faith.
Exactly. And that's where ijtihad comes in.
Got
It
it.
encourages Muslims to engage in informed and ethical decision-making, drawing upon the principles of the Quran and the guidance of Islamic scholars, but also taking into account the specific context and complexities of the issue at hand.
So it's about finding a balance between respecting tradition and embracing progress.
That's a great way to put it. Ijtihad allows Islam to evolve and stay relevant without compromising its fundamental values.
Right.
And the Ismaili Imams have been instrumental in guiding this process of reasoned interpretation,
Okay.
particularly when it comes to modern challenges. They encourage Muslims to approach these issues through a lens of ethical responsibility, seeking solutions that benefit humanity while upholding the sanctity of life and the principles of social justice.
It's like they're saying, we need to be thoughtful and responsible in our pursuit of knowledge and progress, always keeping in mind the potential consequences of our actions.
Exactly. And that sense of ethical responsibility,
Right.
coupled with the capacity for reasoned interpretation through ijtihad, is what allows Islam to remain a relevant and guiding force, even as the world continues to change at an unprecedented pace.
This is all incredibly insightful. So we've got universal principles, a commitment to knowledge, core values that resonate across time and cultures, and this concept of ijtihad, which allows for adaptation and growth.
Yes.
But I'm curious about how this all connects to the individual.
Okay.
What does it mean for someone living in today's world to embrace these ideas of Islam?
Yeah,
How does it impact their daily life and choices?
that's a great question. And it brings us to another key aspect highlighted in the essay, the idea of hope and accountability within Islam.
Hope and accountability. How do those fit into the picture?
Well, Islam teaches that our actions in this life have consequences.
Okay.
Not just in the here and now,
Mm.
but also in the hereafter.
Okay.
This belief in the afterlife and divine justice motivates people to live righteously
Right.
and to strive for excellence in both their worldly pursuits and their spiritual development.
It's like that classic concept of reaping what you sow,
Yes,
but with a cosmic dimension.
exactly. And the Ismaili tradition emphasizes finding a balance between material success and spiritual growth.
Oh, okay.
The Imams encourage their followers to pursue both with equal zeal,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that true fulfillment comes from aligning your actions with a higher purpose.
So it's not about rejecting material wealth or ambition,
Right.
but about approaching them with a sense of ethical responsibility and a desire to contribute to the betterment of the world.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that our choices have ripple effects, impacting not just ourselves, but also our communities and the world around us. This awareness of accountability, coupled with the hope of a meaningful afterlife, motivates Muslims to live with purpose and intention, striving to make choices that align with their values and contribute to the greater good.
It's inspiring to see how these ideas connect and create a framework for living a life that is both meaningful and impactful.
Yeah.
And it's a great reminder that even ancient wisdom can offer valuable insights for navigating the complexities of modern life.
Absolutely. And it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right?
There's so much more to explore within this fascinating essay and the broader tradition of Islamic thought.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've explored some really fascinating concepts, and I'm eager to delve even deeper in the next part.
Okay.
But before we move on, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question to ponder.
I love where you're going with this.
All right, so given what we've discussed about the universality of Islam and its emphasis on ethical living and social justice, what do you think are some of the unique challenges and opportunities facing the Muslim community today? And how can these core values be applied to address pressing global issues like climate change, poverty, and conflict?
Those are excellent questions.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners will take some time to really reflect on them.
We'll be back in the next part of our deep dive to continue unpacking these ideas and exploring even more insightful connections.
Okay, sounds good.
Until then, keep those minds churning.
Definitely. Welcome back to our deep dive exploring the timeless relevance of Islam, especially through the lens of Ismaili thought. I feel like we've already uncovered so many fascinating insights.
I know, right? It's amazing how much ground we've covered already, but there's still so much more to explore. Before we dive back into the essay's arguments, let's do a quick recap for our listeners.
Great idea. So far, we've established that the essay argues for Islam's eternal nature based on a few key pillars: universal principles that resonate with everyone, a preserved scripture in the Quran that ensures continuity across generations, and this incredible capacity for adaptation through ijtihad, which allows it to engage with any challenge.
It's like Islam has these deep roots that anchor it in timeless wisdom, but also these flexible branches that allow it to grow and adapt to new environments.
That's a perfect analogy, and what I find so compelling is how the Ismaili Imams embody this balance between tradition and progress. They're not just talking about these timeless principles, they're actively putting them into action in today's world.
Exactly. We talked about their work in education, their advocacy for pluralism, their commitment to social justice. It's really inspiring to see how these Islamic ideals are being translated into tangible efforts that make a real difference.
It really strengthens the case for Islam's universal appeal, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. You know, all this talk about universality and timeless principles is making me wonder if this concept of ijtihad could be useful for other belief systems too. I mean, we live in a world where everything is constantly changing, so how do you keep any system of thought relevant in the face of that?
That's a really thought-provoking question. It speaks to this broader challenge of how traditions adapt and evolve without losing their essence. And ijtihad, with its emphasis on reasoned interpretation and contextual understanding, offers a fascinating model for navigating that tension.
So it's not about clinging to the past or rejecting change, but finding a way to bridge the two.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even the most ancient wisdom needs to be reinterpreted and applied in fresh ways to meet the challenges of each generation. It's about finding that sweet spot between preserving the core values of a tradition while allowing it to evolve and remain relevant in a changing world.
It's like that saying, the only constant is change. But with ijtihad, it seems like you can embrace change while still holding on to those guiding principles that give you a sense of purpose and direction. That's powerful.
It is. And it reminds me of another point the essay touches on, this tension between material success and spiritual growth.
Hmm.
We live in a world where there's so much emphasis on achieving more, accumulating more, being more. It can feel overwhelming, even suffocating at times.
I feel that. It's like we're constantly bombarded with messages telling us to buy more, achieve more, strive for more, but it rarely leads to lasting happiness or fulfillment.
Right, but Islam, particularly through the Ismaili lens, offers a different perspective. It emphasizes the importance of balancing material well-being with spiritual development.
Yeah.
It's not about rejecting material success altogether, but about approaching it with an ethical framework, a sense of purpose that goes beyond just personal gain.
So it's about asking yourself, how can my success benefit not just me, but also my community, the world around me?
Exactly. It's about aligning your actions with your values, recognizing that true fulfillment comes from contributing to something larger than yourself. The Ismaili Imams often emphasize the concept of ethical entrepreneurship, encouraging their followers to use their talents and resources to create businesses that not only generate wealth, but also uplift communities and address social challenges.
So it's about using your success as a platform for positive change, making a difference in the world while also achieving personal fulfillment. That's a really inspiring concept, and it makes me think about the role of leadership in promoting this kind of ethical and socially conscious approach to success.
That's a great point. The essay doesn't explicitly focus on leadership, but it does highlight the role of the Ismaili Imams in guiding their community toward a path of both spiritual and material progress. They emphasize that true leadership is about service, about using your influence to empower others and create a more just and compassionate world.
And it's not just about leading through words, but through actions, right?
Hmm.
Like the initiatives we talked about earlier, the educational programs, the social justice advocacy, the emphasis on pluralism.
Yeah.
These are all tangible expressions of that leadership philosophy.
Exactly. And I think it's this combination of timeless wisdom, ethical leadership, and practical action that makes the Ismaili perspective so compelling. It's not just a set of beliefs, but a way of life, a path toward achieving both individual fulfillment and collective progress.
It's like that quote attributed to Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. It's not enough to just talk about values. You have to live them, embody them, and inspire others to do the same.
Beautifully put. And that's what I find so inspiring about exploring these ideas. It's not just an intellectual exercise, it's a call to action, an invitation to reflect on our own values and how we can use them to make a positive impact on the world.
You know, as we're talking about all this, I'm reminded of a conversation I had recently with a friend who was feeling really disillusioned with the state of the world. He felt like everything was so chaotic and divided, and he didn't know where to find hope or meaning. It was almost like he'd lost faith in humanity.
I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling these days. We're bombarded with so much negativity news of conflict, injustice, environmental destruction. It can be hard to stay optimistic.
Exactly. But our deep dive today has been such a powerful reminder that there are still people and traditions out there working to make the world a better place. It's given me a renewed sense of hope and a belief that change is possible, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges.
I agree. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about exploring a tradition like Islam, particularly through the lens of Ismaili thought. It offers a framework for understanding our place in the world, a set of values to guide our actions, and a sense of hope that empowers us to work for a better future.
It's like that saying, it is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Instead of dwelling on the negativity, we can choose to focus on the positive, to find inspiration in the efforts of those who are working to make a difference, and to contribute our own light to illuminate the path forward. It's about reclaiming that sense of agency and believing that our actions, no matter how small, can have a ripple effect, creating positive change in the world.
Absolutely. It all comes back to that idea of hope and accountability that we were discussing earlier. It's about recognizing that we have a responsibility to use our talents and resources to make the world a better place, and that even in the face of darkness, there is always hope for a brighter future.
This deep dive has been such a rich and thought-provoking exploration so far. We've covered so much ground, from universal principles and the power of knowledge to the importance of ethical leadership and the tension between material success and spiritual growth. And it's amazing how these ideas all connect to create a coherent and compelling framework for understanding the world and our place in it.
It's really a testament to the enduring relevance of Islam, and particularly the Ismaili perspective, that it can address these complex and multifaceted issues in such a nuanced and insightful way.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with another thought-provoking question to ponder. We've talked about how Islam emphasizes the importance of unity amidst diversity. But how do we actually put that principle into practice in our own lives? How can we bridge those divides that often separate us and build more inclusive and harmonious communities?
That's a fantastic question, and it's one that we'll be exploring in more depth in the next part of our deep dive. So stay tuned, because we've got even more insightful connections and thought-provoking discussions ahead.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the timeless relevance of Islam, particularly through the lens of Ismaili thought. As we wrap up this exploration, I'm struck by this feeling of possibility.
I know exactly what you mean. It's incredibly inspiring to see how a system of thought that originated centuries ago can still offer guidance and solutions for the challenges we face in the modern world.
It challenges our assumptions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We often think of progress as moving away from tradition,
Right.
but this deep dive has shown that sometimes the most ancient wisdom can be the most relevant.
Yeah, great.
It's like we're rediscovering truths that have always been there, just waiting to be unearthed and applied to our current context.
It all comes back to the idea that fundamental human needs and aspirations haven't really changed all that much over time. The search for meaning, the desire for justice, the longing for connection, these are timeless yearnings that transcend cultural boundaries and historical eras.
Now, what's so fascinating is how Islam, with its emphasis on ethical living, spiritual growth, and community building, speaks to those yearnings in a way that feels both universal and deeply personal. It's like it offers a roadmap for navigating the complexities of life, regardless of your background or beliefs.
Precisely. And the Ismaili Imams, with their commitment to education, pluralism, and social justice, demonstrate how these timeless principles can be translated into action in the modern world. They're not just talking about lofty ideals, they're actively working to create a more just, compassionate, and equitable world.
And they're inspiring others to do the same, right?
Absolutely.
That's what I find so powerful about this deep dive. It's not just about acquiring knowledge, it's about sparking a sense of possibility and empowering us to make a positive impact on the world.
It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating a better future. Whether it's through our individual actions, our engagement in our communities, or our efforts to promote positive change on a larger scale, we can all contribute to building a world that reflects the timeless values of justice, compassion, and unity.
It's like that ripple effect we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Even small acts of kindness, compassion, and courage can create waves of positive change that extend far beyond ourselves.
And when we ground those actions in a framework of ethical responsibility and spiritual awareness, like the one offered by Islam, those ripples become even more powerful. It's about aligning our intentions with our actions.
Right.
And recognizing that our choices have consequences that extend beyond the immediate moment.
You know, thinking back to that question I posed at the last part about bridging divides and building more inclusive communities,
Yes.
it seems like the answer lies not just in grand gestures or sweeping policies,
Right.
but also in those everyday interactions, those moments of connection and understanding that we create with the people around us.
Absolutely. It's about approaching those interactions with empathy, curiosity, and a willingness to listen and learn from those who are different from us. It's about building bridges of understanding rather than walls of division.
It's about challenging our own biases and assumptions,
Right.
recognizing that every individual has a story, a unique perspective,
Yeah.
and something valuable to contribute. It's about creating spaces where those stories can be shared and those perspectives can be heard.
And when we approach the world with that kind of openness and respect, it creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond our sects.
Yeah.
It inspires others to do the same.
Right.
And gradually, those ripples of compassion and understanding can transform entire communities and even societies.
It's like that quote by the poet Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field, I'll meet you there.
Oh, wow.
It's about transcending those labels and categories that often divide us and connecting with each other on a deeper, more human level.
Beautifully put. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and understanding that we're all interconnected.
Right.
Regardless of our differences, it's about embracing that interconnectedness and working together to create a world where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to reach their full potential.
This deep dive has truly been an eye-opening and inspiring journey. We've explored the timeless relevance of Islam, particularly through the Ismaili perspective, and uncovered so many insightful connections between ancient wisdom and modern challenges. I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been a pleasure. These deep dives are always so enriching. They remind us that there's always more to learn, more to discover, and more to connect with. even in the most familiar of topics.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to learn more about Islam, the Ismaili tradition, and the timeless wisdom they offer. We encourage you to continue exploring these ideas, challenging your assumptions, and engaging in thoughtful dialogue with those around you.
Remember, the journey of knowledge is never truly over. There's always another layer to uncover, another perspective to consider, another connection to make. And as we continue to learn and grow, we can all contribute to creating a more just, compassionate, and fulfilling world for ourselves and for generations to come.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those timeless truths that can guide us toward a brighter future. Until next time.